Hi everyone, this is episode 4 in our big battery build out project. If you need an overview to the entire project, go back to episode 1 and watch that. We went through the entire system. In this episode, we're going to be mounting the big inverters and building and installing a lot of the supporting wiring. In the last episode, we were finishing up the work on the inverter wall, so let's get those inverters installed. We shanghaied our good friend Greg again to come over and help us with these inverters. Now these are big inverters. These are 5K Quattro II inverters, and each one of them weighs about 60 pounds or something. So we needed a little extra muscle to get these things installed. Thanks so much to Greg for helping us out with this part of the project. All right, well there's the 2 inverters in on the wall. Looks pretty good. We've got room for activities down here. So much room. Looking forward to getting stuff installed. I need to screw them down so they don't move, but look at that, huh? It's looking very blue in here. So this guy here, the multipass, is going away, but that's where the auto transformer is going to go. We still have access behind here for the MPPTs. I wouldn't want to actually have to take them off, but we do have access to them. Well, I think these guys look great where they are. Project is really proceeding well, I think, at this point. Got a lot of work to do. I've got to install the boxes for the buses below here, and of course we've got a crap ton of wiring to do as well to hook all this stuff up. But look at this. The inverters are in. They fit-ish. They were really hard to get in. That was bad on me, but I needed them as high as absolutely possible, and they did go in from the side. So now we know that's how they go on and how they come off. I wanted to go through a quick bit on how I'm crimping my wires and the type of wire I'm using and crimpers and all that sort of stuff. It's taken a lot of work to kind of get to this point, and I wanted to share with you what I've learned so far and what seems to be working really, really well. So first of all, this is Pacer wire. It's a marine grade wire, and I'll show you in a minute. It's also tinned. It's a really, really fine strand wire. Very flexible. This is 2/0, not 2 gauge, but 2/0, and look at this. I mean, it's so flexible. There's a gazillion little strands in here, like the size of a human hair. I've got Ancor crimp connectors here, these lugs. So these are the lugs I'm using. These are great. They're tinned and copper tinned and very thick walled and very serious. As far as wire cutters go, I've got a couple. These guys here work really, really well. These are Klein Cutters, and they will cut the end of this really, really well. So you can, and once again, this is 2/0, not 2 gauge, but check that out. Like butter, right? That's so serious. These are from Temco. A friend of ours, Greg, loaned these to me. They look like pruning shears is what they look like. But they're really, really strong. They do a great job, and these are really good for like 4/0 wire, really big, heavy wire. The Kleins will do definitely up to 2/0 really, really well, and 3/0 and stuff, but it struggles a bit with 4/0. You can do it, but you have to have a strong grip. Now, there's a couple of things we have to do in order to get one of these lugs on here. We obviously need to strip back our insulation here. So what I do is I make sure that the labeling here on the wire is showing, and I put my thumb up here, and the wire goes about that deep into it, and then I look on the wire and I can see it's lined up with the 2 there. So that's pretty much where I want to cut. You can use, like a marker or something to mark it if you like, but I just find this to be a lot faster and easier. So I know the wire is going to go about there, right about the 2. Then in order to strip it, I use one of these guys. So this is a wire stripper, believe it or not, and you push this guy up like that, and that is a very, very sharp cutting head there, this bit here. And it's adjustable. You can turn this thing. The only problem with it is that it does take a bit to get the depth just right. So we said we're right on the 2 here. So I'll set my cutter to line up right really close to the 2 there. And you lay it on top of it like this. And you want to be careful as it goes around. It really has a tendency to want to spiral really bad. So I try to push it up against my fingers and try to stay in one run all the way around, so it doesn't spiral too bad. Sometimes it does. That looks like it went pretty good. And you can bend this off like this a little bit. The idea is we don't want to cut any of those strands. It's really, really important. So just kind of work this a bit. You can see it did a pretty darn good job. If you ever have a little bit that's still left over and you need to cut it, you can take a little razor knife and just lightly score it like that. You don't have to put much force on it at all, and it will rip off. Perfect. All right, so we'll get this guy off. Now take a look at this wire. Look at this stuff. Look how thin that is and how there's just a billion strands in there. It's really something. Next step is to take your lug and test fit it. It's down deep enough. It seats up to the insulation. That's absolutely perfect. That looks great. All right, then after that, our next step is to use some of this stuff. This is called deoxit, and it's a concentrated formula you can use to clean the inside of the lug and the wire itself. Now, in theory, all this should be very, very clean, but it's always a good idea to hit this stuff a little bit. It just takes a little bit, and I just run a little bit around the inside like that. It's red, you can kind of see it in there. And then I take one of these little swabs and just move it around in there. This is per the instructions. They say to leave a thin film as well as a protectant. And then I will also sort of just pat the edge of the wire here. So now we are all set. You want to make sure you capture every one of those strands as you put your lug on. And just take a look around, make sure you don't have any strands sticking out anywhere. Fabulous. Next step is to use this bad boy. So this is a Temco product as well. This is a crimper. Now the important thing about this crimper is that it pushes that pin right there into the top of the crimp and holds it with this block. And it's adjustable. I can spin this thing for different sizes. I've got it set perfectly for the 2/0. All right, I have to set it down here on the ground in order to do it properly. Open this guy up. We want to be crimping here. I always like to crimp on the top of it, not on the back. If you crimp on the back, it tends to bend this a bit and it looks a little goofy. But if you crimp on the top, it won't bend the angle between the wire and this flange. So we just sort of move that into position there. Kind of seats itself pretty nicely. Bring this down. Make sure our wire's in all the way. And I'm holding this thing with my foot because it takes a lot of force. And then I just drive this bad boy in. Gosh, I just give it. There we go. Okay. And then remove this. Look at that. Look at what that pin did. Drove right into that thing. And then the backing squares off these edges here as well. And this is so on there. That is going nowhere. There's no way you're going to pull this off. It is cold welded on. It is so serious. So that's a really, really good crimp, and I really like this. You can't go wrong with this tool. It's about $100 or so, but it's totally worth it. Now, the last thing we need to do is throw a little bit of heat shrink on it. Now, this is a special heat shrink that has an adhesive on the inside that will also seal it. So I like to kind of just sort of measure. Let's see, I want to be from pretty much the base of right about here-ish to, I don't know, in there ways. It does not super critical, but something like that, about that big. I'll go ahead and cut that. There we go. This is a 3/4 inch, I think, and what I like about it is it does slide over really well. So it's so nice to have one that will actually fit over the crimp. Now here's another tool that I really, really like. This is a DeWalt. This is just a heat gun with the big, huge 6 amp hour battery on it. Now a lot of people will use an open flame for this, use like a lighter or something, and I'm not good with that. Not on a boat, I'm not, for a couple of reasons. One, you probably just end up burning a lot of this anyways, and you're gonna get a very uneven shrink on it. The other thing is an open flame can be very dangerous on a boat, and we actually know of a story of a boat that burned down because somebody was using an open flame on one hull and there was acetone that was spilled in the other hull and it burned the whole boat down. No bueno, that's not good at all. All right, so check this out. This guy works really well, actually. Takes a little second for it to warm up and then it starts doing its thing. Okay, and what I want to show you here is watch the glue sort of come out around the edge. It gets a little glistening there. That's it. That's the inner glue that's in there. And you want to heat this enough until you see that come out. Then you know you're getting a good seal all the way around. So it just gets shiny. You'll just sort of see it. There it goes. It shows up. It locks it on really well and it seals it from moisture. Shrinks down really well. It takes a little more time here at the top where you've got the actual crimp because the crimp takes up a lot of heat. So you gotta spend a little more time up here to get it sealed. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Yep, it's coming out, doing its thing. Let's go over the center of it really quick. Just make sure it's all shrunk down everywhere. And the nice thing, of course, is I can go straight down with this or to the side. I don't have to, if it's not an open flame, a flame has to go up, so I don't have to worry about any of that. All right, and that's our crimp. I think it's super serial. This is great wire, a great crimper here to crimp on a very good crimp with a very good method. And this is solid, and I'm not worried about this one bit. So these wires are the wires that are going to go from the battery bank to the inverter. And there's 8 of these things, 4 positives and 4 negatives. So let me show you my little rig here to get these exactly the right length. This black one is the very first one I ran, and I made sure it was the very longest possible wire. Since they all have to be exactly the same length, I just took the farthest position away and ran it all the way around and made sure I did all the contours and all the places I wanted to go. I got my length. Then I put a crimp on it, just as I did this. What I did at the other end here was to bolt the next wire to it. So you just bolt these 2 together like that, and then you can travel all the way along here and make sure that these are exactly the same length all the way to the end, and then use your wire cutters and cut them, and we're very, very close to exactly the same length. And so for the next wire, for this one, we'll do the same thing. I'll open this up, put this guy on there. All right, and then lay this down. Pull my wire out. Okay, now with that laid out, I'm going to go back and do this one more time. All right. I can even see that my last wire at this point is even maybe a smidgen too long. Look at that. So we can cut a little bit off of that. Look at that.
Wow.
Isn't that something? Look how fine that wire is. And it's also all tinned. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's really nice wire. Very expensive wire, but very good wire. All right, so now we can cut this one. Our next wire right here. Boom, look at that. All right. And then to continue on, I'm going to put another lug on this one, the one on the spool, so that I can then take it back all the way to my bolt, run it all the way out, and cut it. And that way I'm not trying to measure on a wire I've already put a crimp connector on. These, I know the exact length of these. This is great. And then when I'm done with all my wires and they're all cut to the right length, I'll go ahead and put just crimp connectors on all the wires at once. And it just saves time, makes it easier, and I think the wires can be a little closer. The resistance you're going to see on those wires over a short distance like that is really small. It's really going to be the resistance of the connector itself, that crimp connector. That's what's going to make all the difference in the world. So you want to use the same tool, the same setting, with the same materials every time, and hopefully all of your crimp connections will be really solid and will have a very similar resistance to them. That's going to make balancing the systems out quite a bit easier. So, all right, well, I have a few more wires here to go. I need to create, let's see, I need a couple more red ones, and I need to put crimp connectors on the rest of them. When they're done, they look like this. So here's the 3 black ones I've already done, and so that's what they look like. That black one down there will get an end on it, and it'll be the 4th black one. So, and then I have to install all those in the engine bay. Our first step is just to take a little bit of sandpaper, sand the back of this. You just want to kind of brighten it up. Don't grind through the coating on here. Just brighten it up a little bit. Good. And then we're using this deox that we've been using when we made the cables and everything. So we're going to be using that. And you just need a little dab on it just to go around like that. Just a little bit. And then we take our applicator pad here and just sort of smear it around like that. And then we also want to clean inside here the actual surface of where these guys are going. Like, just clean in there as best you can. It's probably a pretty good connection anyways. I mean, it's new from the factory, but still. There, like that. There we go. And now with our lug on there, I can add the washers and nut and such. All right, goes washer, then the lock washer, which is a copper lock washer, and then our nut. One last thing I want to mention is I always use a torque wrench to lock these down. They have a specific torque rating. I think it's 14 Newton meters for this. And my little torque wrench has Newton meters on one side and inch pounds on the other. So I have it set to 14. So whatever inverter you're using, or even if it's a different version of the Victrons, check the manual. The manual will have a torque spec for this. It's very important. Otherwise, if you spin off one of these bolts that's in here, one of these studs, oof, I don't even know. I don't know how you'd fix that. You have to take the whole thing apart and blah, blah, blah. So just use their torque spec. It'll be tight as they require, and you won't spin the bolt. There we go. All right, good. I've been making a lot of progress, but I'm at the point where I've got to turn these inverters on. At this point, they're not really connected on the AC side to anything. I just need to turn them on from the DC side, power them up, and get them programmed. All right, well, there's a couple of different settings that need to be set up, quite a few actually. I have a long list of instructions that I've put together, a big, long Word document on all this stuff, and everything I need to do from the beginning to the end. I've done a lot of research on this, and I hope I get it all right. Our first step is just basically to power these things up. And sort of the process is that I need to bring the batteries up, but I can't turn the main switches on just yet. I need to power the inverters through a resistor. It's actually a 25 ohm, 100 watt pre-charge resistor. And the idea is that these inverters have very large capacitors in their power supplies. And if you just put power to them and just turn them on, then you can actually damage the BMSs in your batteries, or certainly at the very least, your batteries will just shut down. It looks like a direct short to the battery. So we don't want that. The pre-charge resistor, which I've built into my little voltage box over here, will slow down that process quite a bit by adding 25 ohms of resistance to it. But it's a critical step that has to be done before we actually turn on the main switches and then fire up the inverters and then start to do our programming. So our first step is going to be that pre-charge. I want to double check a few things and make sure that I'm seeing voltage in the right spots and all that sort of stuff. So I'm just going to kind of go through it very, very slowly. Once I'm certain everything is fine and working just fine, well then we're good. I can turn these things off, turn them back on, pre-charge them, all that. I won't have to worry about it. So that's our first step, is to verify that the pre-charge is going to work properly. My pre-charge circuit is on the second 24 volt bank, so I've got to turn that on to get started. So let's go ahead and turn on our second bank here. It's the first battery, and turn that guy on. There we go. We got a nice green indicator and a little beep, and we'll turn on the second one, and it should come up here in a second. There it is. All right, let's check our voltages. All right, there we go, down there. So 13.3 and 13.3. This is the second bank. I can see them rolling. So it's just kind of a thing, but trust me, 13.3 on both. That's great. So let's get our multimeter and get a value first before we start and see what the value is at the inverter for the voltage. Should be close to 0. So checking across the positive and negative here. Yeah, we have 4.8 millivolts is what that's reading. So virtually nothing. Great. Okay, well, we're going to hold these guys on here. Let's check our voltage as we hit our pre-charge. So the button's up here on the top. Well, let's see what the voltages do when I go ahead and hit this. So, all right, here we go. Boom. Yep. Look at that. Up to 23, 24. There we go. That's full power. 25. 0.4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 25.5. That's about right. That seems great to me. I think the solution here is going to be to turn on the inverters while we have the pre-charge button depressed. That way we can be certain that our voltage is good on the inverters before we start and everything has been pre-charged. So now that's going to be kind of a thing. If the green LED is on, I think that's going to tell me that the inverters have been pre-charged or they're on, which is kind of nice. If it's not on, then the inverters need to be pre-charged. All right, well, at this point, we can pre-charge and then turn on our inverters. So this is our big switch here. I'm going to, over this way, I'm going to hold the button down. All right, a pre-charge button is on and bright and green. All right, here comes the moment of truth. Yep, I think it's good. I think we've got plenty of power, so let me go ahead and turn this on. Here we go. All right, it is officially on. Can let go of the pre-charge resistor. All right, now let's go ahead and check our voltages at the inverters. And we do, by the way, see a little green light on the shunt, so that's up, that's good. And we see a green light also on the distributor back there. So looks like we do have power, yay. Okay, so let's check our voltages. Nice bright green light, that means that we are charged and the inverters are powered. That's this right here, we're still reading 13.3 on both. All right, let's see, we should have 24 volts here, 26 volts or so. There we go, 26.63 volts. That's what we expect. And over on this side, same deal. Let's see. 26.63 volts. Our connections are correct. Positive on the left, negative on the right, positive on the left, negative on the right. And this is red and red. All right, all good news. We have officially pre-charged our inverters. We turned on the main power and we didn't get any fireworks. We didn't get any fuss and drama. So that means everything was pre-charged. So that's cool. Next step is going to be to turn on the inverters. We need to plug them together and let's see, and what else do we need to do? We need to get ready to program them. So let me hook up the cables first and then we'll go ahead and turn on the inverters. These are actual Victron cables. I like to use the actual Victron cables. These are very important data connections. And they say in the manual you should not build your own cables just in case there's problems. And I've built my own before and I've had problems. So I'm actually going to use the Victron cables. They get plugged into the VE bus to parallel the two units together. And then we need to hook this guy up, which is an MK3 to USB converter. This is what we're going to use to actually program it. It also gets plugged into the VE bus, but on the primary, which is on the right, secondary, it here is on the left. So, all right, let's go ahead and get our cables plugged in. Doesn't matter which one exactly, so there we go. Bing, that's plugged in. All right, so we're gonna plug in here. And next we wanna plug in our cable from our converter box here, the VE bus. Click, there we go. We have our VE bus connection between the two inverters, and we have our MK3 thingamabobber here, our to USB interface all set, ready for programming. All right, next step is going to be to turn these inverters on. The button is actually up underneath here. You can kind of see the switch on top there with little red and yellow wires going out of it. We want to rock it towards us. That's position 1. That puts it in inversion and charging. Otherwise, in the back, I think it's just charger only. So we want to make sure that this thing is fully on. So let's go ahead and turn it on. There it goes. Here's a click. It's thinking for a second. There we go. Inverter on. All right, how about primary? You're the master. Here we go, buddy. What do you think? Yeah, there we go. They are thinking. We got flashy lights. We've got flashy lights. Okay, so far so good. We've got flashy lights, which is a good thing. Nothing is really pissed off. We've got flashy lights that I think mean stuff. So let me go ahead and plug this in to my phone. We'll bring up the VE Connect thing app, and we should be able to go through and program these guys. Let's see how it goes. I'm going to plug in our USB cable. That's kind of neat. Look at that. Pulled it right up. That's pretty cool. It's pulling in the VE bus device. There we go. Quattro II. Let's click on that and see what's going on. Connecting to it. All right, great. All right, so we need to update the firmware. Device has been updated. Okay, so we have a new VE bus system. More than one inverter charger has been detected, and the system configuration is required to make them work together. This is expected when setting up a new installation. All right, so let's go on. Oh, we have to do this again. Here we go. Connect all units and the MK3 interface in daisy chain using Cat5 cables. We've done that. Switch on all units. We've done that. Once the setup's completed, all assistance will be removed from the units. All right, great. It's going to find, hopefully, 2 units found. That's great. So we want our 2 units in parallel. See that? There we go. So we're not doing split phase or any of this, or 3-phase or any of that fuss. We want our units in parallel. So there we go. Hit next. Identify and assign. We have a master and secondary. Fine. Start configuration. All right. Master. Okay, so assign blinking unit. Okay, so let's take a look at this really quick like a bunny. And the one that is really blinking down there is the secondary. The other one is just got its regular 2 things. So I think that's the one they're talking about. Blinky, blinky, back and forth. So that's going to be slave 1. All right, great. So we're auto-assigning the remaining unit. That makes sense. And resetting the systems. There they go. Click to click. We heard them click. Oh, they're clicking again. That's great. All right. Okay. All right. So we can hit finish here. Great. All right. So now we can go in here and we can set up our system. We've got a lot of things to set up. Okay. We didn't get an error. Let's go into enable settings. Z. Okay. There we go. So I've got all my settings here on my tablet. Got absorption settings, I've got parameters to check, parallel input polarities, all sorts of stuff that I want to double check through all of this, and some programming notes and all sorts of stuff. So I'm reading off of this to make sure everything is cool. And when we're done here, we're going to copy it to the other inverter. That's it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching, and a very special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Questions or comments, leave them down below and I'll get right to them. Join us in the next video when we install the auto transformer and get to work on all that AC wiring. Thanks again. Until next time, safe travels. Bye.